So how's everyone's week? Good. You guys are officially halfway through your first semester. More than halfway in a day. So how's that feel? People still feeling good? Are people feeling overwhelmed yet?
Yes.
Yes.
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Did everybody get in their thing? Their library assignment?
I think so.
Yes. Okay, cool. Good. How was it?
It was kind of strange.
Yeah.
It was not too.
In what way? Like,
I know that I watched the videos and then went to do the assignment and then I was like, wow, I don't remember anything.
Yeah,
So I had to go
same.
back and like skim the video.
do you guys want a little like advice on using the library system? Would that be helpful for you guys?
Yeah.
Since you guys didn't get the good in-person one, because like most of our librarians are nuns and they're like cloistered up right now. Not because they're in a cloister, but because
Yeah.
they don't want it spreading into
I
the
think
community.
they're
Yeah, I'll give you guys some advice.
I was gonna come back.
Yeah.
Why would the library be used by nuns?
So
Amazing.
cute.
That would make my soul feel better.
There's like one program.
Hello.
It's on. Well,
It's
blue
on?
just turned blue, so.
Yeah, I love that.
I really dislike that each projector is different. It really confuses me. Ah, there we go. Cool, it worked. There's some that you have to hit it multiple times or it won't turn on too. And those I feel like it's just easiest to stand like this and wait for it to pop up. But okay, once it starts up, we'll.
I can kind of see something, but I don't know, it would help if you turned off the light.
Yeah, it's still warming up. This is just the attendance roster, so ignore that. Okay.
Alexa's here.
What's that?
Alexa's here.
Oh, I hit you. How did I do that? No,
I got you.
Cool. Well, let's go back over this. Yeah, that's almost everyone's here. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Good job, guys, on attending. Okay, let's go to our college website. Okay.
Yeah.
Academics, library.
Yeah, it's true.
So, okay, so the most important thing to know how to do on the library website is to search for scholarly journal articles. Right? And so I'm going to give you probably something biased by my discipline. Some people will tell you to go to JSTOR. Everything on JSTOR is old. It's like 15 years old. Like, how's that relevant anymore? Academia moves a lot faster than that. So I'm not going to tell you that. Everything is good on JSTOR, but what I would recommend doing, and you can tell me if this is completely different than your library tutorial, and I would go to EBSCOhost. This is going to be your best area. Select absolutely everything. And hit continue. So what do people want to look up?
What?
What do people want to look up?
Soccer players. I don't know. Just throwing
Oh,
stuff
I
out
was
there.
soccer. Soccer players.
Or football.
Soccer injuries.
We can do injuries if you want.
I mean,
Oh,
and I can show you what.
I don't know.
Is that your library?
Yeah.
Okay.
Julian something.
Is it places? No.
So useful things. If you're in a rush, as in like, oh crap, I should have started that term paper rather than the night before. Full text.
Oh.
This is the stuff you have access to. If you're not in a rush, Good example right here. The mindfulness-based program on the incidences of injuries in young male soccer players is an article like, you're like, yes, that's the article I need. We don't have access to it, but you can just click on here, fill this out. If you do it on your own personal computer, once you fill it out, it'll just stay filled out, and then you can just keep on clicking. It very nicely fills out all the journal information, so you don't have to like actually do that. You just have to fill out the things with stars. Let's not long that. Okay. Other things you should know. If you want them just to be peer-reviewed journals, a lot of professors, myself included, are like, no news, no websites, just peer review. That's where you do that. If you're getting a bunch of like really old things you don't need, that's how you do that. Right? You can also, if you just want them to be academic journals but don't care if they're peer-reviewed, you can do that. If you're getting a bunch of foreign language stuff that you don't read, you change it to English.
Entire download book.
Yeah.
Copy and paste.
There you
Just
go.
copy and paste it all into Google Translate.
So, and there's a variety of other things you can limit by, right? Like if you're getting a bunch of stuff on subjects that you're not interested, you might be able to limit by that, right? Although if you're getting a bunch of stuff you don't need, the thing that you really need to do is sort of like limit what your search term is. So let's say anything in particular you like about soccer players or want to know about soccer players.
Concussions. Like we're dealing with concussions.
Injuries.
How do you spell concussion?
USS.
Island.
That looks totally wrong to me. Okay. I'm totally a millennial in this way that like I grew up with spell check. So if the computer doesn't tell me how to spell it, I don't usually know. I actually usually, if I want to say write a word on the board in class that's not specifically out of the reading, I have to write it in the margins so that I spell it right. And I usually figure that out by my computer telling me how to spell. Okay, is that similar to other people's experience?
No.
No, you're like an awesome speller.
No, I suck at spelling.
So okay, so yeah, that's how you do that. Another thing that's really useful is to do the advanced search. So if you want it to be like the core thing in the article,
That looks like cheating.
you do abstract, right? That means it's going to be mentioned in that paragraph that describes it at the top, right? And that'll make the search a lot smaller. If you're looking for a specific article you know of, you can limit by author, right? That's another thing that's useful to do. Okay, you all see how to do that? Cool. Another good thing to do. Do people know about Google Scholar?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good old Google Scholar. Do you know how to interlibrary loan things?
No.
How to what?
So Google Scholar, sometimes they have the documents, sometimes they don't. So let's look. Soccer players concussion. Look at that, it spells it for me. Isn't that nicer? Okay, so let's say you want this article, which you don't have access to. Right? You don't have a version of it up. What you can do is you can go to the library website.
Oh.
Right?
Big sandwich.
So
I
it's,
arranged that problem before, but
Oh.
now I have to see it.
Ew.
You're still for that specific one.
so come on. you go to the library website, right? And right here it says interlibrary loan. Click on it, it'll give you this. And if you want to just save that separately in your email, then you'll have it. And you just copy and paste all the information on the article, the title, the journal it's in, the page numbers, the thing, send it out to this, and the librarians will just send you back the article. So, because colleges share, anything that exists, you should be able to get. So yeah, if you're searching on Google Scholar, or that's how you would interlibrary loan, which is the same thing that you're doing when you do it on EBSCOhost. It's almost identical, but you know, it'll arrive to you in much the same way. Okay, any other things people want to know about how to use the library system? Is that all clear, useful advice then?
How would you find government documents?
Okay. Here. Actually, usually,
They have an entire section on
yeah,
government documents.
yeah. This is something I don't normally do, so I'm not sure exactly where it is. Government and law, probably. Yeah. Right here, catalog of U.S. government publications. So that's where you would search for it. Anything you're interested in searching?
Census of 1910.
So, okay, so let's just select all those. You're going to end up with a bunch of stuff because, oops,
That's so weird. That's so weird. Yeah, me too.
huh. Oh, too many databases selected.
Difficult word.
So this will be, that didn't work, which is weird because it's like it's hard to do. If you want, I can look into that and tell you how. I just generally don't use government documents, so they will show up in your general search sometimes as well. But depending on what they are, like sometimes there are some sources in terms of the government are better than others, but. Okay, so just thinking about source material, what is the most widely accepted sources going to be?
Yeah.
Do you guys know this?
No what?
So when it comes to the sources, when people, the sources that are going to impress people the most are going to be peer-reviewed scholarly journals, right? Or books, right? But not all books are created equal. Some books are good, some books are bad. Do people know how to tell?
You can't quote that.
The best books are published by university presses. So as in the most scientific, the most like clearly scholarly sources are going to be published by university presses. From there, and this usually you'll learn what these are when you get into your discipline, nonprofit presses. Certain disciplines have certain nonprofit presses that aren't like the University of Chicago. Like in my own field, Verso is a very common nonprofit press. Rutledge is a very common nonprofit press. Any for-profit presses generally aren't producing as scholarly of stuff. So not all books are even created equal. But so that's my general research advice. Cool. Was that helpful for navigating the library system? Wonderful.
What?
was really blinding. Sorry, that was really like dramatically loud. Okay, let's go ahead and dig into our Benedictine value, our habit of mind, and our reading for today.
That was a good, I like Flannery O'Connor.
I love Flannery O'Connor.
Yeah.
She's a good writer.
Well, let's start with the values, and then we'll get to the story. So, what is our value for today? What's our value?
Intellectual hospitality.
Hospitality, right? What is our functioning definition of hospitality here? Does it exist in every other classroom? Here. What are we meaning by hospitality?
To like treat people with dignity.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, to treat people with dignity, right? What else?
To be open to the multitude of persons in the human family, God's greatest treasure and our greatest resource.
So what does that mean? The multitude of persons in the human family.
Like inclusivity.
Yes.
Inclusivity of like all people from all different walks and places.
Yeah. Yeah, that we're to respect the dignity of everyone, every person, regardless of who they are and what background they come from. Right? I think that's pretty clear, right? So what does that mean? How is that connected with the habit of mind? What is our habit of mind? Thinking flexibly. Unthreatened engagement, right? So what does that include? What is that about?
So like you feel you're like welcoming people so that like they know that like it's okay to talk to you like without being judged in any way.
Yeah, so in a lot of ways what we're being called to do basically this week is simply to not be judgmental towards others' ideas, right? Regardless of how foreign or different they are to us, no matter how much they offend us, right? So you should be welcoming to diverse voices. You shouldn't shut them down. And this is it says to contemplate new ideas without criticism, judgment, or preconceived opinions. So what is that kind of asking you to do? What do you have to set aside? To engage with people.
Like your own like biases.
To some degree, you have to set aside yourself, right? So that's kind of, we shouldn't assume that other people are wrong, even if they're from very different perspectives. You can't, well, and even like, we can think about like, in academia, we spend a lot of time critiquing ideas, right? Critiquing other people's ideas. But what do you have to do before you critique it?
Understand it?
You have to understand it. You have to listen to it. I took some literary criticism classes when I was in graduate school, and the literary critic I took classes from said regularly in class, "You only write about things you like." Right? And their whole point is like, if you're going to critique something, you have to know it inside and out. So this semester, I think I brought up some of the publications I'm working on. I'm doing one on rap videos for a group called Diantver in South Africa. One of their videos that I wrote about specifically, I Think You Freaky. I probably watched this video maybe 200-300 times, right? Like it would just be like, I'd be like writing, I'd be like, what was that image? And then I'd have to watch the whole video again, right? And like, so like, at least 100 times. I at least watched it 100 times. You know, I played it at a conference and then talked about it. Like, I engaged with this so many times that I hated it by the time I was done. I can't stand the video now. But I liked it when I started, you know. So like when you think about like engaging with something, right? Engagement comes out of knowing, and even like real critique comes out of like an intimate knowledge with ideas. Now we're trained to do something very different than that. Like to some degree, like what we naturally want to do is to some degree put down other people's ideas so that we feel safe within what we think about the world. Right? So what we naturally want to do is the opposite of that. We want to contemplate ideas with criticism, judgment, and preconceived opinions, because that makes us feel smarter than other people, right? But like to some degree, the call of like being a good scholar, as well as here being kind and generous to other people, is to do the exact opposite of that, right? Yeah.
Well, like meanwhile, there's definitely like clear balance between truth and like non-truth, right?
Yeah. So this is like a good way to think about this, and this is a methodological term. So people talk about, and you've probably heard this term. You've probably heard of moral relativism, right? Yes. But there's a distinction between moral relativism, which is basically I have no opinions. Right? Basically, everybody's opinions are equally valid. Nobody really knows anything sort of mentality, and what we'd call methodological relativism. And under methodological relativism, what you do is you, in essence, like set aside what you do think to understand before you do anything else, right? Because in essence, like, if you think about it, like, if I attack ideas about, if you sit down and you read a text, and your goal in reading the text is, do I agree with this or not? You're going to, in some ways, write over what already exists there. We refer to this as the phenomenon of overcoding, right? You overcode what's existing, right? You essentially, like, replace what's there with your own opinions and thoughts. Right? So instead, like, yeah.
Well, isn't that why it's important to have a well-formed conscience then? So that you can make those decisions as to like whether something is like true or untrue?
But what I'm saying is you have to engage with it before you could even get there.
Okay.
So like methodological relativism is just setting it aside. It's not letting go of it. It's like putting it in your back pocket for a little while. Right? You don't know if you agree with somebody till you know what they're saying. And a good way to think about it too is like a lot of times what we'll do is we'll just look for words, individual words, and they almost become like alarm bells. So if somebody starts using words and we're like, oh, I don't like that word, oh, I don't like that word, we will stop listening to what they're actually saying, and we will just be like, oh, they're just one of those ... And that's a very bad habit of thinking, right? And if you engage with the world that way, you're going to categorically misunderstand it, right? Yeah.
I just want to like add, I feel like it's really like there's a big difference between like hearing somebody and like listening to them, because I think it's like, I don't know, especially if you do like notice something that someone says is like incorrect or not true. I think it's really easy to, as a result of that, like not be able to tell that person or to bring them to the truth, because you like immediately like turn on like that's wrong and I'm gonna correct them like or say that that's wrong rather than listening. And like I think that like you were saying, like the words that like might trigger something like, oh, this is whatever thing, like you hear that but you're not, I think it's easy to not necessarily listen to what a person's actually saying.
Yeah.
I feel like that's another distinction I want to make too, because I feel like bringing someone to the truth is such a good thing, but I think that it's a lot harder to do that when, rather than like understand and like talk to them about it, you like kind of I guess attack. You know?
Yeah. Well, and two, like how we can think about some of our earlier values. How do you get what are some sound ways of getting to what's true versus some probably pretty bad ways of getting to what's true? In other words, do you find the truth on your own? No, you won't, right? Like, and so to some degree, like these are if we want to think about the habits of mind as interrelated, right? Like engaging with other people in a sort of community of engagement, right? Like is how you're going to actually get to what's true. You have to have somebody else to balance out your own biases, all the ways in which you're incorrect, right? And so like setting yourself aside is part of how you learn this. Truth is found in dialogue. Truth isn't found independently. You can go bury your nose in every single book that's out there, and if you're only thinking about the world through yourself, you're going to understand nothing, right? So so in like a lot of ways, like bringing somebody else to the truth, in a lot of ways, maybe a better way of talking about it would be coming to the truth with other people, right? Like they're going to help you see what you don't see, and they're wrong, but so are you. You're almost, regardless of what we're talking about, there are ways in which you are wrong, right, about most things that you think. I know that's really vague, right, but there's a mixture of truth and falsity in your ideas, right, and figuring out which of those are which is kind of like the goal. So like being flexible enough that you don't like blindly misunderstand the world is kind of the tool you use to do that. Make sense? Other people's thoughts. This is a great conversation. Other people's thoughts and reactions to it, the idea. And there is a fine line between being so loose that you no longer like have ideas of your own, right? There is a fine line to be crossed here. You don't want to become a like complete blank slate neutrality sort of thing either, right? Like you do know things, right? But it's, and you can even think about too, like you guys are familiar with, do you guys know how science works?
I mean, like, what do you mean by that question?
What I mean is like, what is it that makes science work? What makes science a better way of finding out information in some other ways?
Group thought is more trust.
So, you guys learned like the scientific method, which by the way is a simplification, and there's actually different methods in each discipline, yada, yada, yada. But the sort of simplified scientific method you learn in school, like high school, you guys remember like the last step of that is?